Triratna Saranam, Namo Amitabhaya, Namaskar. The people of the Indian subcontinent, not just Indians, and have forgotten what a Buddha is, and the history of Buddhism in the Indian subcontinent. And that is why I want to speak about this to Indian people mostly. There's a historical reason why this has happened. And we'll go through it. Step by step, we'll go through it. There's a historical reason why the Indian people have forgotten the Buddha completely. You know the word Buddha, you can see a statue of Buddha, but you don't know what a Buddha is. Not who a Buddha is, what a Buddha is. And even more, you've forgotten to what extent Buddhism reigned the Indian subcontinent for 1700 years. That has been completely wiped off the memory of the Indian people. And it is not even talked about. And there's a reason for it, because after Buddhism collapsed completely from the Indian subcontinent, then the Hindus, Brahmins, created a milieu where you would forget the Buddha. And this is very important for Indian people to know, especially educated people, to know this. Because Buddhism is your heritage. It went all over the world, China, Japan, Korea, Afghanistan, Iran, to as far as Antioch in Greece and Alexandria in Egypt. They were Indian gurus who spread them. And Nepalese also, of course. But since you are Indian here, I'll speak about Indians only. Indians only. They were Indian gurus. And nowadays, in the Indian subcontinent, even in Nepal, Brahmins and Kshetris, they believe that Buddhism is a foreign religion. And they are Hindus. But 75% of the Indian subcontinent, from Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, down to Kerala and Sri Lanka, were Buddhist. If 75% of the Indian subcontinent were Buddhist, there are very few Indians here whose forefathers were not Buddhist. So what happened? We'll talk about that. So first let's go to what is a Buddha. To understand what is a Buddha, we have to depend on the words of Sakyamuni Buddha himself. And this goes 3 asankhya kalpa before. 3 is 3, of course, you understand as Indians. Asankhya kalpa, kalpa also I'm sure you understand that. Asankhya means 60 zeros. Not 60 zeros years, kalpas is 1 asankhya kalpa. 3 asankhya kalpa means 3 such asankhya kalpas. Ago, there was a yogi, a bhikshu, called Bhikshu Sumekh. He was a very advanced yogi who could go to Indralok and come back. He had all the siddhi riddhis. And that was the time of Dipankar Buddha. When he saw Dipankar Buddha walking, and in front of him he had to go through some mire, mud, slime. So he slept on the mud, so Dipankar Buddha would step over him and go beyond. Then Dipankar Buddha turned around. Then this yogi got up and said, "May I become a Buddha like you?" Now this itself is a big question that you should ask. This man was already what in today's Indian subcontinent's language would be called Paucha Hua Bhakti. So what was he trying to be? What was he trying to be? He said Buddha, but what does that mean? And it took him 3 asankhya kalpas of practice, meeting many Buddhas on the way. During that period, he himself has said he was born 7 times as Indra, many times as Brahma. So, Devi Devatas, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Indra are not Buddhas. Because it was in his Bodhisattva Charya that he was born as 7 times as Indra, many times as Buddha, Brahma. So, Devas are not Buddhas, no matter which Deva, what Deva it is. And what happened? Gradually, he developed totally and completely all the potentials of the mind. All the potentials of the mind penetrated through nescience, avidya. And he was spiritualized so much that even his body changed. And I'm sure you've heard the word Batik's Lakshan, the 32 characteristics of a Buddha, appeared in his body. And 80 Anubhyanjana, 80 minor characteristics, like copper-colored nail and so on. Among them, the last 2 that appears in a Buddha is a tuft of white hair here in the center called Urna in Sanskrit. And his skull is raised up like this. It's called Ushnisa. This itself is the extent to which the people of the Indian subcontinent have forgotten the Buddha. Everybody has seen the statue of Buddha. You can't live in India without seeing the statue of Buddha. And everybody thinks, like the ancient rishis, it is a tuft of hair tied up there. He was a bhikshu. He had no hair on his head. So, it was not a tuft of hair. It is his skull raised up like this. That is the Ushnisa. And only a Buddha has that. No devas have that. The hair, the skin is golden colored. That is one of the 32 characteristics, Bhattis Lakshana. Golden, long ears, you might have seen in the statue, up to the shoulder, and all those various things. But these 2 last one appear only in a Buddha. If you accumulate punya, vast, infinite punya, even other beings can have other characteristics, but not all the 32. Then he was enlightened in the Mahayana tradition in what is called the Akanishta Bhuvan or Bhumi or Akanishta Bhuvan. Akanishta means not younger than any. So that is the highest Brahmaloka. There are, in the Buddhist tradition, 17 levels of Brahmaloka. And the highest Brahmaloka is called Akanishta. And he attained a full enlightenment in Akanishta. That is according to the Mahayana tradition. In the Theravada tradition, which belongs to the Shravakyana tradition, there were in the Indian subcontinent 22 different kinds of Sravakyan traditions like Mahasangika, Sarvastivada, Mool Sarvastivada, and so on, many other. All of them vanished completely. Theravada had reached Sri Lanka at the time of King Ashoka. And from Sri Lanka, and also from the Indian subcontinent directly, they went to Burma, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, southern Vietnam. So they managed to survive. But the other Sravakyan traditions just vanished completely. And fortunately, Mahayana had already reached China, Tibet, through Central Asia. And so it continued to survive. So among Sravakyan, only Theravada survives today. But in Mahayana, many schools still survive. And in the Theravada tradition, they say that he attained all the steps of various levels of enlightenment, all at one go under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. We in Mahayana do not agree with that. If a person has practiced for 3 asankhya kalpas and even his physical body has changed, it is not possible that he was not enlightened at all. And we believe that he attained full enlightenment in Akanishta Bhuvan. And now, the word used, Buddha, is a shorthand. His full title is Samyak Sambuddha. Samyak means correctly, Sam means totally, completely, Buddha enlightened. So he is not just merely enlightened. He is correctly and totally, completely enlightened. And in the Mahayana tradition, there are many levels of enlightenment. Actually, there are 10 levels. When you reach the first level, which is called Darshan Marga, means seeing the enlightened state directly, it's called the Pratham Bhumi, the first Bhumi. That is already enlightened. But there are second Bhumi, third Bhumi, fourth Bhumi, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Up till the eighth, it is still considered as impure Bhumi. Impure not in the context of people like us, in the context of enlightened people. And from 8th, 9th, 10th is called pure Bhumi. Pure Bhumi. And in the Shravakyan tradition, they have Arat, which is the highest stage. The Arats are considered as equal to 8th Bhumi. But then there is 9th, 10th. And 10th Bhumi, once you cross 10th Bhumi, then you become a Samyak Sambuddha. Whereas those, even the first Bhumi, are already enlightened. This is something that the Indian continent has lost. They have no idea. They think anybody that is enlightened is a Buddha. But Buddha is just a shorthand word, kind of a shortened word for Samyak Sambuddha. And then every Buddha comes down to the lower Devaloka or Swarga, called Tushita Devaloka, Tushita Bhuvan, and remains there until the teachings of the former Buddha vanishes completely. It is like saying there are no two lions in the same jungle. As long as one Buddha sasana means teachings here, not ruling or reigning. The sasan, sastri, sasta, these all come from the same root. Sasta means guru. Sastri is somebody that has studied very well the dharma. And sastra, sasan. They are actually rooted in the same, etymologically, the same root word. And so it's called Buddha Sasana. As long as the Buddha Sasana of Kashyapa Buddha remained, then Bhiksu Sumeg would not come down. He will remain there in Tushita Devaloka. And this is the same thing for every Buddha. Kashyap did that before the teachings of the Buddha before him vanished. And the next Buddha that is waiting is Maitreya Buddha. And he is there in Tushita Devaloka. And he will come down only after Sakyamuni's Sasana, Buddha Sasana, vanishes completely. It vanished in the Indian subcontinent to an extreme extent. But it has not vanished. But it still exists in China, in Korea, in Japan, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Laos, in Thailand, in Burma, in Sri Lanka, and in Nepal, and Tibet, and Mongolia. It still exists. It is still alive. There's I don't remember, I'm not too good at Urdu, but the Iqbal, the famous Urdu poet, and he wrote a poem, I don't remember all of the poem, but the last part was, Sama-e Gautam jal rahi hai mehfile ariyar mein. Means in outer countries, it is still going on. I think the people of the Indian subcontinent has forgotten that. They think Buddhism died completely. It is true, it died in the Indian subcontinent to an extreme extent. It died in India, more or less. It weakened a lot in Nepal. But it continued to remain in Tibet, very dynamic and alive. It continued to remain in Mongolia, in China, in Japan, all these different countries. And there's a reason why this happened, but we'll go back to the Buddha right now. So, when Kashyap Buddha's Sasana vanished completely, then all the devas, Indra, Brahma, Maheshwar, Shiva, whoever, they all come down to Tushita or up to Tushita and request Bhikshu Sumekh, it is time to go down. You know? And this is what is called charya. Charya. Now the popular word in the Hindu system is called lila. You know? But in Buddhist terminology, it's called charya. Every Buddha does this charya. Then the Buddha chooses father and mother. This time it was in Lumbini in Nepal, and the father was Suddhodhan, Sakya, and the mother was Maya Devi. You know? This is not that every Buddha will be born in Lumbini. Different Buddhas were born in different parts of the Indian subcontinent, or what used to be called Bharata Barsha. You know, Bharata Barsha is not just political India. Afghanistan was part of Bharata Barsha. Parts of Iran was part of Bharata Barsha. Central Asia was part of Bharata Barsha. Nepal, Bangladesh, they were all part of Bharata Barsha. You know? So, Bharata Barsha, when I use that word, I don't mean political India alone. It's that whole area. You know? It's called Aryavarta. You know? Bharat, where the Aryas are born, Buddhas are born. You know? Aryas are born. And then he entered the mother's womb. I suppose you know the story that the mother saw the dream of a six-tusked elephant, white elephant, entering a room. At that time, there is a slight earthquake. And there is light in all the three realms of existence, called Tri Dhatu in Buddhist terminology. Nowadays, in the Indian subcontinent, the word Tri Bhuvan is more popular, but the Buddhist terminology is Tri Dhatu. In Tibetan, they call it Kham Sum. You know, Kham means Dhatu, Sum means three. And there is this light, but this light is seen only by those who have Siddhi Riddhi, not ordinary people. And then he was born, and in both the Theravada texts, the Majjhima Nikaya, Ascharya Sutta. Ascharya Sutta means Ascharya Sutra. You know? And in the Lalita Vistar, in Mahayana, in Sanskrit, the Theravada text is written in Pali. Pali is an Indic language. It was developed in Avanti Janapada, whose capital was Ujjain. We still have Ujjain in India today, right? The capital of Avanti Janapada was Ujjain, and Pali was developed there to encode the Buddha's teaching. That went down to Sri Lanka. It was taken by Mahinda. Mahinda is Mahendra. You know, Mahinda went to Sri Lanka and took the whole Tripitaka down to Sri Lanka. And from there it spread to Thailand, Burma, and all those countries. But then the Buddha's teachings were inscribed in all the various Indic languages, Apabhramsa, Magadhi Prakrit, and various other Prakrit. You know? And because the Buddha himself said that he wanted his teachings to be taught in the language of the province where it went. Couple of Brahmins had come to him and asked him, shall we put your teachings in Chanda? Chanda is Vedic Sanskrit. You see, a lot of people get confused with Sanskrit and Vedic Sanskrit. Vedic Sanskrit is not really Sanskrit, it's Chanda. What is called Sanskrit started after Panini, around the time of the Buddha. You know? Vedic Sanskrit is older, but it's actually called Chanda. And so they went up to the Buddha and said, shall we encode your teachings in Chanda? And he said, no, I want my teachings to be written, to be taught in the language of each province it goes to. That is the reason when it went to Tibet, it was translated into Tibetan from the Indic languages. You know, I call it Indic language because it's not just Hindi. There was Apabhramsa, there was Prakrit, Magadhi, many languages, ancient Indian languages, you know, and they were translated into Tibetan. They were translated into Chinese in China. You know, that was helped by Indian gurus and Nepalese gurus, the translation. And there were many Brahmins. You know, today, Brahmin seems to be a synonym for Hinduism. But in the time of the Buddha, And for almost 1600 years, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of Brahmins who were Buddha's disciples. And we will talk about this a little bit later. We'll go back to the birth. When the Buddha was born, it is said he was born from the right side of the mother. And the three deva means, nowadays when you say three deva, it means Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. But actually it's Brahma, Vishnu and Indra. Indra held their hand and then put the child down on the ground. When he stepped on the ground, there was a lotus flower, and you have, I'm sure, seen a small child with a finger like this up here. The meaning of this is, I am the eldest in all the three realms of existence. Jesta, Sarva Jesta. I am the eldest. So at birth, he was the eldest in all the three realms of existence. So no devas, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Indra, Varun, whatever, are elder than him. He is the eldest, spiritually. And also in spiritual powers. He was the eldest. That is what he claimed when he was born. When he was born, again, there was a slight tremor, earthquake, and light in all the three realms of existence. At that time, a rishi was meditating in the Vindhyachal hills. He saw this light. So he went up to Indraloka and asked Indra, I saw this, what is the meaning of this? And Indra said, don't you know, a Tathagata has been born. Tathagata is another name for a Buddha. Tathagata, thus gone. And then he asked him where, and so place, Lumbini, and so. So he stepped down, came down. When King Suddhodan saw this great rishi come, he was overjoyed, and he put the child in his hands. And after a while, the rishi started weeping, crying. Then Suddhodan thought, this must be some bad sign. This great rishi is crying after holding my child. Then he asked him, is something wrong? Is something bad? And the rishi said, no. When this child grows up and starts teaching, I will be dead already. I will not be able to receive his teachings. That is why I am crying. Then he grew up. Now I'll cut the story short. He married and all so on and so on. And then he left his home. And here again, there is a lot of confusion in the Indian subcontinent about this. A lot of people in the Indian subcontinent believe that he studied with Vedic Brahmins, he studied Vedas and so on. Actually, during the time of the Buddha and before him, there were two streams of spiritual practices in the Indian subcontinent. One is Vedic Brahminism, the other is Shamanism. Shamanism has been forgotten in the Indian subcontinent. Why? Because there are two Shaman groups which still exist, but one left the Indian subcontinent, Buddhism. Buddhism is a Shraman practice. Jainism is a Shraman practice. Both the Mahavira and Buddha call themselves Shramana. And that does not mean there were no Brahmins who were Shraman. Many Brahmins left Brahminism or Vedic fold and became Shramans. They went into the forest and meditated. Vedic Brahminism is basically what is called Purva Mimamsa. Purva means before, older. And there you do Havan Yagya and appease the gods and goddesses, Devi Devata, and they make your life good here. And that's how you live your life. Today, you hardly find any Indian or Nepali doing that anymore. There are few, like when I started my retreat, we had to look for an Agnihotri who lived his life like that. And with great difficulty, we found one. By the time I finished my retreat, he was dead. And there was nobody else in Nepal. I hear there are few people in some parts of India who still live their whole life like that. That is Vedic Brahminism. What you call Hinduism is not Vedic. Although it is linked with Vedism, it is not Vedic. In Vedas, there is no Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Ram is a later development. In Vedas, there is no Shiva. You will find slokas in Yajnavalkya Smriti, Apararka Bhyakhya, and in Skanda Purana, where it says that those who follow Vaishnavism and Shaivism, and other Anya Diccham Samacharit, and other systems like Buddhism and Jainism, Brahmano na bhavet so atra, they are not Brahmins. Yaddipi syat sarangabit, even though they know all the 6 limbs of the Vedas. So Veda did not accept Shiva, Vishnu, Buddhism, Jainism. Did not accept that. It was in later centuries, Vaishnavism, Shaivism slowly integrated into Hinduism, into Vedic fold, and which became Hinduism. Nobody worships Indra anymore. In the Vedas, Indra is the highest god. Who worships Indra today? Which Hindu worships Indra? You don't even find a temple of Indra anywhere. So Vedic system is not what is called Hinduism today, although it is connected. It is connected. And so in the time of the Buddha, there was the Vedic system and the Shraman system. And many Brahmins were not satisfied with the Vedic system, because the Vedic system does not ask questions like, who am I? What is life? Is there anything more to life than this? I do havan yajna, fire sacrifice, and make the gods happy, and they make my life happy. That's all. So many Brahmins questioned. They left and went to meet Shraman gurus and practiced under them. So Buddha also studied under 2 Shraman gurus who were Brahmins, but they were Shramans, Alar Kalam and Udrak Ramputra. He, having practiced for so many years, the kalpas, achieved the state they took many, many years to achieve within a month, within weeks, within months. They were surprised, and then they told him, you have reached the same state as I have. Now you can become a guru and teach. And he said, no, I have not achieved what I wanted. Then he went to the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. And about the Bodhi tree, when a Buddha is born, the Bodhi tree under which that particular Buddha will achieve enlightenment, so-called enlightenment, will sprout. And as he goes older, the tree will become bigger and bigger and bigger. Bigger and bigger and bigger. And it is not necessary that it is always a peepal tree. This time with Sakyamuni, it was a peepal tree. With other Buddhas, it could be Ashok tree or any other tree, Sal tree, any other tree, whereas they sprout. Also, when a Buddha is born, a very extremely rare flower called Udumbara blooms, sprouts out and blooms throughout his life, and when he passes into parinirvana, it wanes away. The Udumbara flower arises only when a Buddha is born, not even any Deva, no matter how powerful the Deva is. These are signs of a Buddha. Then he went under the Bodhi tree and enacted enlightenment. That's what we call in Mahayana an enactment.